you will find your people, you will find your tribe because they will be attracted to you. So if you're an awkward person or you think you're weird or you're not cute enough or whatever, try putting all those things aside and really like showing up as yourself. Um, because the ones who really like you.
Welcome back to another episode of Doing the Most, the Misadventures of Entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Georgie, and today we have Mellany here with us. She is a longtime friend and colleague and fellow doer in the business world. So I'm super excited to have her here to tell us her story, what she's working on, and some of her misadventures and adventures of being an entrepreneur. So let's kick it off with Mellany. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and what you're working on right now?
Hi, thank you so much, Georgie. It's good to be back for a second time. Always good having a conversation with you. So a little bit about me, Mellany Paynter. I am from the Caribbean, Trinity to the bone. I'm sure you guys can hear the accent. What I'm working on right now, couple of things, really great projects. I'll start off with the one that's, I guess, maybe like the most exciting. I do a bunch of media projects for different companies or initiatives for myself, and they could include anything from documentary filmmaking to writing blogs, upgrading SEO, building websites. So I'm just like an all-round creative. My background is in project management. I have a civil engineering degree from Howard University. So I have combined my love for writing, my love for project management, and just my love for wellness to create projects that have social impact and that really help push the community forward. So that's just basically it.
Yeah. All right. So let's unpack that right now. So I know you had like a mental health and wellness program that you were building out, specifically targeting like women, Black women, women of color. So tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so the last time that we spoke, Georgie, a lot of stuff has happened, stuff has changed because, of course, we went through our entire pandemic. So prior to the pandemic, the name of the organization was All About the Sisters. Post-pandemic, we are now Well Black Sis, and I'm wearing my T-shirt in honor of Well Black Sis. And the idea behind Well Black Sis is really this. Well Black Sis is a mindset. It's a lifestyle. It's affirming your wellness every day. And as Black women, because we are so marginalized, because we are so impacted by whatever happens right now, Roe v. Wade is up for hot discussion, and Black wellness is something that has to come to the forefront. And I thought about this during the pandemic, and I understood and I saw how we were being impacted negatively. And I said, you know what, we have to have a different mindset coming out of this pandemic. We have to do something different. We have to shift the perspective, shift the focus. Yeah. And I wanted the brand to represent something that really said, listen, we accept that we are well, whether we actually there or not, it begins here. So I've named the initiative, or the safe space, if you want to call it, Well Black Sis. And it's just simply to have conversations and inspire you, the listener, to put your wellness first every single day.
Yeah, and because that's what you focus on. I usually ask this question a little bit later, but I want to pop it up now. Is just what inspired you to do this? Like, why how did you prioritize your wellness? Because a lot of us as founders, we build it for ourselves first, and we're like, everyone needs this. We have to expand it. And so, how do you manage your mental health, your wellness overall, not just mental, but how do you manage your wellness, and what inspired you to share that with others?
I'm glad you asked that, because just to give a little bit of a backstory, I spent the entire 2020 and 2021 at doctor's offices. Not necessarily ill, but I had a couple of issues that were impacting other issues. And so they became all these connected issues. For one, I had fibroids, which I removed in 2021, I believe, early 2021. But I was seeing a doctor all of 2020 because I realized after sitting all of 2020 in the house on the computer, just doing nothing because we really couldn't be outside, my fibroids, suddenly I became very aware of how large they were.
Wow.
I think prior to the pandemic, I didn't realize, but maybe because I was busy and moving and not paying full attention. But because we were now inside in quarantine and in the quiet, I noticed I had these huge lumps, and I'm like, what is going on? I knew I had them, but they weren't that large. And inactivity, I think I heard this during the pandemic where somebody said, sitting is the new smoking. And,
yeah.
and the effects of that really hampers the body. So inactivity really brought me to a different kind of awareness. And I understand now in hindsight, like I have to move every day. I have to find some sort of movement. So I did start with simple walking because I couldn't do much. I was very low energy. And coupled with that, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia in the summer of 2021. And if you don't know what fibromyalgia is, it's really joint pain. I have it on one side, which is my right side, all the way down from my shoulder to my toes. And it really is like this uncomfortability that you feel all the time. You have brain fog, so you can't really ideate or create, even though you know what you want to do. The things don't connect. It feels like you're almost crazy, or, if you want to put it real simple. Very debilitating to me. And it was all because of inactivity, no movement, not paying attention to mental health things. You would think that because you're in the pandemic that you would meditate more, but no, I was taking in news more. I was trying to see what was going on out there. I was connecting with friends, but we spent an inordinate amount of time on Zoom, on computers, on social media, just taking in a lot of information and not really like
processing,
letting it out. So for me, it was a wake-up call. And once I got that diagnosis, I realized I had to do different things. So I did start a couple of Eastern medicine modalities. I started acupuncture, Reiki, and a couple of modalities along that line. Because the difference is that Western medicine wanted to put me on antidepressants, and I was just like, I'm not depressed, but the condition brings on a sort of a depression. And I decided I don't do medication like that. I don't take tablets to get better. I know there's a different way to do it. So I embraced Eastern medicine, and acupuncture has been helping. With that, I've also been using a bunch of different herbs, which I share on the Well Black Sis platform, just different things that I've been doing. So that is what really like pushed this whole move into a different kind of a wellness mindset, or let me say this, an urgency to accept that you are well and you can be well, whether you have a really bad diagnosis or not. We have to push ourselves. It's not just about going to the gym. That is one way of doing it, but what else are we doing? It's also mental, it's also emotional. Are we dealing with those things that come at us? Like if you're dealing with something that is going through your life, like a shift, like how are you really dealing with that? Are you seeking therapy for it? Are your kids in therapy for it? Because it impacts everybody in a household if you do have a large family or whatever. And so for me, it really drove this urgency for us to like seek and do better, And I have to say the messaging was there, but I think when you should know this as an entrepreneur, you have to keep iterating. So that you spoke about that the other day. You have to keep trying and trying until you get the messaging right. It's not a one-time thing and it's done. You have to keep changing it around and really hit the messaging, because when it hits, it hits. So.
Yes, definitely. And you have to, be patient with yourself and within the work that you're doing, and, recognizing, I think is the biggest, most important step, because like you said, when you were moving around so fast, these things kind of, maybe you felt them, but you just, I gotta keep going. Take a little ibuprofen, or, let me jog a little or rest a little, but you do it in small doses, but not consistent doses. And I think the consistent small doses, whether it's meditation, Reiki, physical medication, like, Eastern, or no matter what side, Eastern or Western medicine, if you do it in small, consistent doses, then you have more of a continuation versus like, oh, I'm really sick. Let me just, drop a bunch of medication on this one thing and then forget about it. You're not maintaining that. And it's maintenance and continuation that really shows us the results that we're looking for. And so
let me just
go
add
ahead.
one thing. So I know you could identify with this because you had a lot of work during the pandemic. I mean, everything was like top level. People would come in. We didn't want for anything during the pandemic. It was a great day for entrepreneurs everywhere. So I think one of the things that has changed now, getting out of it, is that the day becomes more balanced. So instead of, yeah, you were making the money, but instead of just like hitting it hard and not taking time for ourselves, I think the day starts off, yeah, you have some work to do, but you schedule your time for work, you schedule your time for play, you schedule your time for other mental things, and you take breaks in between. And I think that is what was missing during the pandemic, because we were like, what, work is coming, we still have work? Like some of us never wanted for anything during the pandemic, and it was just, I think it was good, but it was also bad because our bodies paid for
The
it,
price. Yeah. And so
Yeah.
now we're coming out having to make better decisions.
Yeah.
And so now I want to take a little shift and talk to you about, since you're building this business, what is like a misadventure that you've experienced, right? How have people been receiving, whether it's this business or just a different misadventure you had previously while being an entrepreneur?
I think the biggest thing in entrepreneurship for me and building is that I have fallen victim to looking at other people and seeing perceived growth and thinking, oh, they're doing better than me, and then so I stopped trying, or I stopped continuing with my messaging consistently enough to start to grow myself. And I think just coming out of the pandemic, I started realizing it really isn't about looking at anyone else, because we have no idea what's going on in the background of their businesses.
Yeah.
It's about continuing your messaging and really like connecting with the people around you, because I noticed there was a difference. There's been a shift as well. I shifted mindset, I shifted perspective, I shifted focus, I shifted in the way I deliver. And all of a sudden, the reciprocation from the people who are around me, it's the same people, has been different. So that tells you something. It's you.
Yep.
It's you. And you are at the center of every business. And I think that is, for me, has been the greatest lesson. Like, you have to continue. You have to have the confidence to push the message out every day, even when it seems like no one is listening. There are people out there who are listening. And I think we spoke about this before. It's really crazy, because you really look at it, people like, oh, she got 20,000 followers. Like, how come this messaging is so terrible? It's confidence. I love Gary Vee, because Gary Vee says some things, even though, people might look at Gary Vee and be like, oh, he puts out too much information. Like, he has videos are coming every day. But if you take bite-sized pieces of what he's saying, the stuff it's like lifetime. I like to call it lifetime lessons. It's not just about business, but it's lessons for a lifetime, little chunks of what he says or when he does interviews. And so he's really been a great motivation for me, because he keeps putting out the stuff. I looked at his growth from whenever he started. He took that one skill and he's been able to fan that skill out into a range.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so we have to start somewhere, and it doesn't matter if you're starting from scratch or starting over, rebuilding something. That starting point is the launch of something good, but you have to have the confidence to push it through, and you have to believe in what you're doing. And I think for a lot of us, sometimes we talk about something, but we don't believe. Keep going, because eventually it will catch on to whoever it needs to catch on to. And even if it doesn't, the goal is never about fame. The goal is about reaching the people that it needs to reach.
Yeah, the value that it offers. And I really like what you said about, like, you are at the center, right? And I think it's so easy to forget this or look at this from the negative side versus from the positive side. It's like, you are at the center, so that means you need to run the business. You have to do all these things.
Right.
But you are at the center, that means you need to rest so that you have the energy, the resources, the the charisma, the confidence to then pour into whatever you're working on. And that, again, is more of a life lesson, whether that applies to your business, the company you're working for, your family, your children, your parents, whatever that looks like on the output, you have to pour into your cup. And then that overflow is the best thing that's going to impact everyone and everything around you in the most positive way. And when you change yourself and your attitude and your mindset, it like really shows people like, oh, you can't just talk to me any sort of way. You can't just, limit me in this side of way. Like this is how I am now. You better come correct. And I think you're about to say something.
No, I was gonna say that's the other thing that I learned too, that I've sought help. I used to like do the editing, do this, scheduling this. Blah, blah, blah. Now I have help, and I'm just like, why didn't I really think about this before? But I think it comes when it comes. When you're ready, mindset ready, and you really put it out there and you ask for what you want. That's the one thing that we don't do. We don't ask for what we want. And I'm not talking about put it out on Front Street. You don't need to put a post on Facebook, but internally ask for what you need. Today is a day that I need help doing this. I will need this for the next 3 months. How can I make this happen? As an entrepreneur, you have to do that, because number one, you don't want to, I believe in karma. And so I think people need to be paid for their time. So anytime I seek help, I have to know how much I can actually put out for that person's time. And so that's how I think about it. And so far it's been a different day. It's been good. Light at the end of the tunnel, I have to say.
Yeah, so definitely. It's so important to put out what you want to see back. And like, I love that you said, like, ask for help, because I think it ties into, and because, your brand is like Well Black Sis, like it ties into the narrative that a lot of Black women have been fed. And, I think there needs to be some research on like kind of where did it start, of like the strong, independent Black woman, of like, you have to figure out everything on your own. You have to be like this solid foundation at all times, no shaking. You have to show up. You have to, kind of cater to everything and everyone around you. And so you build up this shield and feeling like, okay, I can take on more, or I can be brutalized, or I can accept half, they say like work twice as hard for half. I can accept that because I am strong and I have to do this. This is just how the country, the world has perceived me. But if you take back ownership and saying, using that, the same thing that will hold you back is almost the same thing that will like allow you to move forward. If you're saying to yourself, I am strong, that means I need to have the support around me to help me maintain that strength. I need to be more strategic in that, and I can share the power, and like, I don't have to handle everything. I can have people be of support to me, and I deserve that help, because I think as a younger woman, I'm not like older, you're not old either, but like I think when we're younger, it's easier to just kind of get into this, believe that narrative of like, oh, you have to handle everything on your own. If you're not independent, that means you're gonna depend on like a person to come and save you, and it's not that. It's we are a community-based race, society, however you want to call it, and from the dawn of time, people need people. And it's not like, oh yeah, everyone was chilling in the hut and only one person went out and hunted. Then they can cook the food and then they build the shed. No, they wasn't in the hut watching like, I don't know, squirrels play. Everyone, you do this part, I do this part. We come together, we share what we have, we then build up more, and we are a community. We share stories, we dance together. Somebody's knocking the drums, somebody's cooking, and that's how we build. That's how we thrive, and that's how society has been built from day one. And so what has happened to us as a people, that we have forced certain groups to believe they should do it by themselves. And if they're not doing them by themselves, they're not good enough. They're not smart enough. They're not strong enough, or they're like accepting help and they should be better, or some negative narrative. So I think we definitely need some studies on that.
Well, that's part of the wellness structure for Black wellness. I like to call it Black wellness because it's specific to us. That I think really needs, like you said, restructuring or re-identifying. And it's like, I've spent a lot of time breaking down these structures that have been built up. I grew up with my mom, and seen her as a super mom. My aunt was a super aunt. She did all the stuff around the house. She did the stuff that a man's supposed to do, the stuff that a woman's supposed to do. She took care of everybody. And in my mind, I'm just like, where did they get this idea from? Like, where did this come from? And why are we still holding on to this? Why are we not asking for help? Why are we not seeking help? And I'm not saying seeking help in a partner always, but just seeking help all around. Like, just a simple example, in our families, when you come to a new country like America, everybody wants to attain the American dream, whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like families need to sit down and map out, how can we get where we need to go faster? What's your goal? Your goal and mine might be the same, but here's what we can do. I shouldn't be paying $1,800 for one bedroom. You paying $1,800 for one bedroom, and you pay, like, that doesn't make sense. Can we all, if we live in the same state or area, put together, get us a little brownstone, each person live on a floor. We renovate it to the point where everybody can have a floor, or we have a shared kitchen. It doesn't really matter. We're family, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can we do that? The money that we'll put towards a mortgage will outweigh the money that we pay individually. We could take the extra that we were going to pay, put that in savings, and keep going until everybody else has their own brownstone. Could be on the same block. We don't care. But once that happens, you keep doing that and you keep doing that. Or you can stop because maybe your family, you're not growing, or maybe you do start doing it with your kids, each individual sector of the family. But when you think like that, and even in entrepreneurship as well, we are not competing with each other. You understand what I'm saying? But if we help each other get where we need to go in the things that we need to do, we get there faster, and we get there faster together. It's not competition, So I think, even all around, whether it's in wellness, whether it's family life, whether it's, your personal, whatever, mindset has to be the number one thing that has to change.
Yep.
It all comes back to that. The mindset, trust, the way you perceive things, because when we look out there, the government, I just interviewed somebody on my podcast, and she was talking about, she had a debilitating disease as well. And she said, nobody's coming to save you. That was the one thing that stuck with me. No one is coming to save you. And she's right. We sit here and we think, oh, well, the government will provide. The government is not providing. They're not providing health and wellness. You have to do the research yourself. And the information is out there. Let's get together and do it. So that's one of the reasons I really wanted to change the messaging and make sure it reaches people, because we are hosting these like once a month in-person events where we turn them into workshops. You come and you have fun, but it's a workshop that either you engaging in self-care or you're engaging in fitness movement, or you're learning something from a practitioner who can teach you something different than you already know, make you aware of something different. Yeah. And I think that's more of what we need. And people right now want connection. We need human connection. And that's been the one thing coming out of this pandemic that I think works. We want and we need human connection again. We've been so disconnected from each other. We barely know what people think. We assume that when people text us, we know how they feel. You can't tell how people feel during a text. So, we got to have that connectedness on all levels.
100% agree with that. And we have the opportunity to do that. I think the pandemic taught us all this lesson of like, we can be better together. And, it was behind the screens, but now we have an opportunity to come back out and say, okay, am I going to exist and do the things that I did before just cause, or am I going to be more intentional? I think we're clearly seeing more and more people wanting to be more intentional and shifting the narrative and changing themselves first, and then helping to change the society and the people around them. So I think, this is very precedented. This is very important at this time. And my hope and goal for us all is to not just have it be a trend, right? A lot of people monetize, and, self-care kind of became like a monetization thing. Oh, like use this eye cream, use this like face mask, go to the spa. Like those can help you feel more relaxed, but that's not the foundation of self-care. That is not where you start. Exactly. That's like the sprinkle, but you need the ice cream, you need the cone, you need the cow, right? Before you get to the ice cream and the sprinkles, you need the cow. And so the cow is the foundation, and then that's what you need to figure out, like, what am I doing here and why? You know what I mean? Like, how do I want to show up and exist in this world? So we're coming to the end of the episode, and I want you to share some advice that you have for the audience of, you know, when they're starting a business, or just overall how to manage themselves as they move throughout the world in a more, you know, well way.
Right. I think for me, the biggest thing I should say that I've always held on to is authenticity. If you show up authentic, you will find your people, you will find your tribe, because they will be attracted to you. So if you're an awkward person, or you think you're weird, or you're not cute enough or whatever, try putting all those things aside and really like showing up as yourself. Because the ones who really like you, and it could be 10 people, it could be 20 people, it could be 100 people, it doesn't really matter. Your tribe is your tribe. And when you move with your tribe, you feel good. And with that, I would say, when you show up authentic, there's a certain joy that comes with it, because you want to feel uncomfortable, others are feeling comfortable with you, but you are more joyful. And we've got to move in spaces that really fill us with joy. If you're feeling uncomfortable in a certain situation or certain space or with certain people, you got to move. This is a new era. This is 2022, and we're no longer accepting spaces, places, things, people that do not bring us joy. And I feel like that's the mantra we have to move forward with coming out of this pandemic. There's been a lot of loss, a lot of grief, a lot of death, a lot of everything, you know, anxiety, depression. Our mental health is at its worst right now for everybody. Yes, you can run to a therapist, but also do the work to figure out those things that bring you joy. And it could be something very simple. Tap into if you live in New York City, I'm going to say this. If you live in New York City, tap into what New York City has, because New York City is
filled.
Listen, 100 with all kinds of stuff that you can get into. I just went to apartment therapy, had their small, cool pop-up in Soho. It's been running for like 3 weeks, and I went and I got ideas to like redo my bedroom. It was just, literally, I spent 15 minutes in this space. It was like 12 pop-ups.
Therapy.
Yeah, the last one is this weekend. It's on Broadway in Soho. You can check it out. Yeah, and there are Black creators there. There are women of color who actually, interior decorators, who are creating. And it's just simple things like that. Just finding those little things. There are little pop-ups that have flowers. Go take some pictures. Carry a best friend. And you just spend the evening doing that. Grab something to eat in New York City, a sidewalk hot dog if you don't have enough money. It's those little things that make a difference in your day and really like help to change how you perceive life, or how life perceives, life perceives you. So that's the advice that I would say. So.
Yes. Go and take those moments. One thing that I've started doing is I've always liked to paint, so I'm being more intentional. So I went to a couple of sip and paints. I bought canvases the other day and went crazy on this huge canvas, the biggest canvas I've ever painted on. I bought some little paints from Target and just made it happen. And I'm just like, this cost $20, and I feel like I'm flying.
Listen, my acupuncturist, when I first started going, she's like, you work on a computer all the time. She said, I need you to do something different. And I'm like, what different am I going to do? Read a book, watch TV? She said, no screens, do something different. So I bought a couple of these shirts and I started making. This is hand painted.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so I have been creating these for friends and family, and I just started getting all these orders in because people want like custom designs, and it's been crazy. I looked around my apartment and I was like, well, what else can I make? I started making decals for my wall with just little motivational things that I want to remind myself of every day when I walk through the space. So there are so many little things you can do. I hosted a sip and paint in February, I think, and we tried a Monet painting, and I was just like, look at me, I could do this. It didn't come out too scrappy, but that's a good thing, Georgia, and you can encourage the kids to get into that too as well, because it changes their perspective of learning, and it's something enjoyable that they can do with their mom, and it's like quality time. It's just like easy, very easy, simple things that we can get into. So, I challenge you guys out there, for those of you listening, to really like, for the next month or so, just try to do something different that you would normally do, something out of the box that you would normally do.
Awesome.
And see how it and come back. Tell us how it works out.
Yes, let us know in the comments. Email us. Reach out. We're both on social media, and if you want to get in touch with Mellany as well as check out Well Black Sis, you could definitely check out the show notes. If you're on YouTube, check out the comments and description section below, and let us know. Right? Like we said, it's not about how far you can get. It's about the people that are value and impact. Whoever's listening right now should be listening to this episode. So thank you again, Mellany, for being here. Folks, check out Mellany and Well Black Sis, and we'll see you on the next episode of Doing the Most, the Misadventures of Entrepreneurship.